Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Also, you can catch Ole Miss's home team broadcast on SiriusXM channel 191 as they take on the Auburn Tigers this Saturday at 6 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. But if you want to hear David Kellum and the boys, you can check them out on the SiriusXM channel 191 Ole Miss home team broadcast. I am here with Josh Guest, and as everybody knows that has followed this channel, I've been all about perspectives. I'm all about commentary, and Josh just reached out to me and said, hey, I got some stuff I want to say. And I was like, okay, buddy, let's say it. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. You're located fairly close to the campus at Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I live in a little place called Taylor, just a few miles south of Oxford, and I work at Northwest Community College, which is about probably a mile from campus. Mm-hmm. So I'm not far from the Grove itself as I sit here right now.
Nice. I'm a little bit jealous. I'm sitting here down here in Central Florida, and every now and then I just like to go back and do a Grove day, especially whenever the air down here is like 75 degrees. It probably feels pretty good up there at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a little cool the last few mornings, but it's been good. It's that time of the year where it's changing and everybody's getting like coffee and everything else right now, because it kind of dropped. But I did think Monday morning, I thought, wow, fall is here. So just perfect weather for things like football.
Speaking of football, Ole Miss is off to a 5-1 start, and there's not an Ole Miss fan out there that looking at the schedule before the season would not have been happy with a 5-1 start. But what's your impressions as the first half of the season has ended?
Well, I mean, as we sort of discussed briefly, the Pete Golding effect, as I call it, everybody's talked about it, all these other things, but I really think we're 2-4 if we don't have him as our defensive coordinator. I think we lose Tulane. I think we lose LSU, and I think we probably lose Arkansas for sure. So the stops they've gotten, I know everybody's like, oh, they give up all these yards and they're not as good as we thought they. What are you talking about, y'all? This guy is – they're coming through when it matters. I mean, the last touchdown against that LSU score was bogus. Even RG3 is like anybody with eyeballs can see that he's out of bounds. And so, the stops they've made when they've made them in big times, I'm nearing 5 decades on this earth. And I think I haven't been a huge Ole Miss fan my whole life, but I did go to my first game when I was a teenager here in Oxford. And I think it was actually against Georgia. You mentioned on your show about, for us older people, Georgia was that one of those common. Georgia and Vandy have always been our common East foes until we expanded. And so, for me to see an Ole Miss team doing what this team is doing is something that I'm not familiar with. It's kind of foreign territory. And yes, I'll take the 5-1 start. Would I have liked to play better against Bama? Of course, and especially after we beat LSU. But you pick the team. Any team we've had in recent or my lifetime loses the LSU game after getting beat by Bama like that. So the fact that we were able to bounce back, be down by 9, I believe it was twice in the fourth quarter, and then get those stops on defense. I mean, think about what we're saying. We got Lane Kiffin as the coach. The offense has been fine, and we're talking about stops on defense that won us some games. So I'm super excited about the 5-1 start. I think we can finish. I think we can finish another 5-1 if we don't get ahead of ourselves. And I think Georgia's gettable. But as you said, there are no guarantees. And, can we beat them? Yes, but that's a whole different thing than should we beat them or will we beat them?
Yeah, and that's absolutely the case. Whenever you look at probability, yes, Ole Miss is the favorite in 5 out of their last 6 games. Can Ole Miss lose those games? They can probably lose 3 or 4 of them, honestly. So we'll see exactly what happens. And you said you went to a Georgia game when you were a teenager, and I'm about to guess and doubt myself. Was it Reed Hines catching the ball in the back of the end zone?
I don't remember. My highlight of that game was I sat in the end zone and I caught a field goal. I actually caught the kick. And so that was the highlight of the game for me. I don't remember who won, what happened. I just remember catching that ball, and I was like 15. I was just excited. If you're 15, you catch a football. That's the highlight of it. So,
yeah, you have a situation when the 80s Georgia, to me, that's like Lars Tate, Rodney Hampton, those teams, the Vince Dooley Georgia Bulldogs. Actually, I've missed playing Georgia every year. Their band sounds good. Ole Miss and Georgia just kind of goes together on the schedule. So I'm glad that at least over the next 2 years, Ole Miss is going to get the Georgia Bulldogs.
We do, and one of the things that I was fortunate enough to get to do in the past was I got to take pictures for the Ole Miss yearbook for about 3 seasons. I was at 26 straight games, home and away, and until I went to A&M in 2014, Georgia was I would call it the friendliest away game I had been at, and so it was really cool to go and got to spend some time there in Athens, and so really enjoyed that trip. And like you said, kind of it just goes together. It's something that I'm used to, and it's kind of weird not having them on this. I mean, I'm kind of glad recently that we haven't had them every year.
Yeah.
But it's still nice to have them there, and hopefully we can. I guess we're playing with house money too, so to speak, because if you lose, you're supposed to lose. So let's go ahead and see if we can take one maybe.
And I don't know if you would agree with this, but to me, Athens was always like Oxford on steroids anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean SEC towns in general. I've been to all of them now, but Columbia, Missouri. I haven't been to Columbia since they've been added to. Not for a game. Been to all the other 13 cities for games for Ole Miss. Don't care to go back to Florida or Tennessee. We got run out of the building both times I went to those places, and I'm tired of hearing it's great to be a Florida Gator. Like that just rings in my ears. And so I went the year they had the quarterback that got busted for steroids. He had the game of his life against Ole Miss.
Oh yeah,
I think Bill Flowers or somebody even said that Ole Miss has had that history of some quarterback who has their career game against us or something. And so, but I think that with Pete Golding, I honestly believe that, man, I just don't know that somebody's going to do that now. I mean, they may start out, but I believe he'll make the adjustments. And that's what I've been so excited about seeing on the defense is the adjustments they've made and how they've been able to come back. And I just sit here and think to myself, if I'm a star defensive player and he's done this with people he didn't recruit and he's going to tailor to my strengths anyway, why would I not go play for the guy? So I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, and it's just if you look at recruiting, he's basically recruited a whole new defensive line of blue chip players. You have Suntarian Perkins. You have the number 1 JUCO linebacker in America committed. The front seven's good to go. The front seven's where it needs to be. And so we'll see exactly what Pete Golding's doing a heck of a job on the back end right now.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. If we can get, another Perkins-like end, it could just be a jailbreak every snap, and the other team could just have not very much fun trying to move the ball.
Yeah, and that's honestly how Alabama and Georgia has made their living over the last few years anyway. No, Jordan Watkins is injured, supposedly. He supposedly had surgery. We are going off of information that's coming from a friend of a friend of a friend whose janitor is in the Manning Center. I mean, that's what we're doing because the staff does not talk about injuries. But the rumor, if it's true, Jordan Watkins had surgery for a broken hand. Lane Kiffin said he anticipates him playing. What do you think's going on here?
I don't know. I had heard it probably almost when it happened. I mean, things like that spread around here, and I have some friends and family that are all on all the boards, and they subscribe to everything they can Ole Miss, and so somebody actually told my wife. They told her, said, "Look, this is going on. He's out. We think 4 to 6 weeks, yada yada yada." So I kind of was like, "Oh man!" I mean, Lane called him third and Watkins for a reason at the beginning of the season, and do I think Wade or somebody else can step into that slot and do well? Yes, but as a teacher, I try to teach my students how to view something, not only how to work it, but how to view it, because I use a sports analogy all the time. If I'm a cornerback and I read slant and I cut off the slant and you run a go route, I'm not a bad athlete. I look silly on that play because I didn't read it right. But the same thing happens when they work a math problem in my class. If they start down the wrong direction, if they don't recognize what it is correctly. And so I only say that to say that whether it's Wade or anybody else, are they going to see the same thing that Watkins saw when he went off the line, and Dart was so familiar with where Watkins was going to be. So Wade may see something else and turn out instead of in, or he may slide into a different zone or whatnot. And I know Dart's a good quarterback. He's even shown how great he is this season. He's part of the reason we're as good as we are. And I mean, you've even been talking about if he comes back a third year, I might have a heart attack. I mean, it's going to be so good year 3 in the system. I mean, we've seen it now with Matt Corral and with Jackson Dart. Year 2 with Lane Kiffin, if you are worth your salt as a quarterback, you're going to be really, really, really good. And Dart's been that good. And so I'm not too worried, but I am a little concerned. Can Watkins relay that information to Wade or whomever, and can they sort of find themselves in the same spots he would be in? Because if they can, Dart's going to hit them. And it's going to just be third and Wade or third and whomever. I think Prieskorn and I think there's another tight end. I can't recall his name right now. If he's back from injury, I would like to see a couple of 2 tight end sets, especially with Judkins or Bentley in the back. How good has Bentley been? Holy cow. So anyway.
Well, Ole Miss has Auburn this weekend. You've heard me say at the beginning of the video, Jordan Hare's it's a weird place. If everything goes the way that it could go, I mean, Ole Miss could win this in a boat race, but that's not the way a game at Auburn's going to go. There's going to be something that gets the crowd juiced up. There's going to be a missed 4th down conversion. There's going to be a turnover that gets them up. How do you see this game going?
I mean, I do think the crowd can get them going. I do think that Freeze is going to really want this one. I think he can scheme some things up. The main thing I worry about is if they jump out 14-3 or something like that. That's what scares me the most. I think if it's just close, if it's 10-7 or if it's 14-10 and Ole Miss has the lead by, a field goal or a touchdown, midway through the second quarter, I'm not overly concerned only because I think we have the horses that they can't hang with. And I'm not trying to be haughty or arrogant or whatever, but, year in and year out, who's the better team? Auburn. That's why we always struggle with them. But right now, outside of what the defensive backfield, we either are the same or better at every other position group on the field. And there are some that are glaringly better. Like, I think our quarterback Jackson Dart is better than most quarterbacks in the country. And especially them. I heard a stat that they had not had a receiver over 200 yards through 5 games before this past weekend or whatever, or through 6 games. And that's just almost hard to do. And so, and again, I know they may go out there and throw for 450 against us, but if they do, I'll be shocked. I just don't see it happening. I don't think Golding will let it happen. They may hit a long pass and score a 75-yard touchdown or something like Mercer did, but I just think in the long run, we will suffocate them with our talent, is what I expect. So I hope I'm right, but I will say this: anybody betting, don't listen to me. We pick against on the show I'm on in the Grove for home games. We pick against the line, and I think I'm like 1-13 on the season, so it's like I'm terrible.
Well, you got to give me a score prediction, buddy.
All right, so a score prediction at Jordan Hare at night. So Ole Miss has only ever won 3 times on the Plains in Auburn. Mm-hmm. All 3 times have been when the sun has been out when they started the game, or maybe even finished the game. I don't know that they've ever even gone into the twilight or darkness and won a game.
2003, it was dark at the end.
It was dark at the end? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that no, that's the second game. The first game in 99.
That was a JP game.
Yeah, they lined up for a field goal, and I actually left. I was in the concourse trying to leave the stadium, and I heard everybody go bonkers that they missed it. So I went back in and watched Corey Peterson catch the touchdown in overtime. I believe if he caught the touchdown in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. In 2003, that was the Obamanu drop. That's right. The lights were on, and I didn't watch that play. I'll be honest with you. I was on the second row behind the players, and when Jason Campbell rolled out, I looked at all the green grass in front of him, and I just buried my head. And when the crowd reacted, I looked up and saw the replay that Obamanu had dropped it, and I was like, I couldn't believe he threw it, for one, and 2, that Obamanu dropped it, because that dude was a legit receiver back in the day. And I think I have those names right, Jason Campbell and Obamanu. And then in 2015, I took my son, who was, I guess, 7 at the time, and I told him, I said, if Ole Miss wins, it's going to be real quiet leaving the stadium. If Auburn wins, there's going to be some ugly things said. We have Ole Miss stuff on. You just walk by Daddy and let's go. We won the game. We were leaving. It was whisper quiet, and my son goes, "Hey, Dad, you're right. We won, and they're all quiet." And I thought, we're finna get beat up. People laughed. But, it was just one of those things where, man, I can't believe you did that to me. But score prediction for this week at night at Auburn. I think Ole Miss comes through, and I'm going to say 34-20. Ole Miss wins by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, that's a cover for everybody that's paying attention, that's contacting their bookie right now.
So do the opposite.
Yeah. My prediction that I gave for this game, that I talked about on my show earlier today, 24-17 is what I'm going with. If it goes completely right, Ole Miss can win this thing by 5 touchdowns. It's not going to go completely right at Jordan-Hare. So just understand. So 24-17, that feels like a pretty safe prediction.
Well, and also, I mean, let's not be shy about this. And I don't know, maybe I'll get fined like Lane Kiffin. I'm not an SEC coach, but the officiating has been pretty bad. The LSU game, the Arkansas game, both of those were – I mean, we only had 5 penalties against Arkansas. I think they had 10, but all 5 of them were in major spots. We didn't get 2 touchdowns called back this year, but, the first phantom pass interference call gave them their first touchdown. I mean, that was clearly not anything. So, anyway, am I still better about that? Yes.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. I tell people all the time, the most penalized team in the SEC is going to be Ole Miss, and the least penalized team in the SEC is going to be whoever Ole Miss is playing. That just works every week that way. But we're getting ready to start the second half of the schedule. Ole Miss, if they can get through Auburn, they've got Vanderbilt, they should be okay. They can beat A&M, and then you got that free shot against Georgia, and then ULM, you should be all right. And State, they're going through some things right now in Starkville, and there's a chance that they just outright quit by the time the Egg Bowl gets here, because they're actually talking how maybe they should fire Arnett, and they're actively talking about it on Sports Talk Radio. Like Bo Bounds had a conversation about how good Jeff Lebby was. Yeah, and I was like, hey, this is year 1 under Arnett. There's a system change, but what it is, they can't stand how far behind they look like they are. It doesn't matter what they are. It's how far behind they are perceived to be with Ole Miss, and they cannot deal with that.
Well, but you can't blame all that on Arnett either. I mean, didn't they just have a major injury at quarterback, and then their fundraising hasn't been – actually, Ole Miss has surprised me with the fundraising, so I've been kind of excited to see it. I'm a teacher, so I'm not a huge part of that, but I do enjoy what's going on and how Ole Miss has embraced it, the fan base, how Lane has embraced the portal. And I think you said it, if you have a quarterback, you can thrive in this. They can lead. The team needs to buy into him. And so, I think if you look at Ole Miss history, I think when we had the duck fly in from Oregon and Mazzoli was the quarterback, we lost to Jacksonville State and I was on the field taking pictures for that game, by the way. We lost that game in triple or quadruple overtime or something, and I thought, really? But the rumors around here were the team didn't want to play for him. And so that was kind of tough. There were even rumors, by the way back in Eli's day. I was on campus at the time that those guys didn't want to play for him until they won that game in Florida. I think it was 20-17 or 17-14. They won. It was Eli's maybe junior year, and then they rattled off all those wins. I think we got beat by D'Angelo Williams in Memphis that year, and then Texas Tech, the shootout. We lost 50-something to 50-something. It was like the LSU game, except we were on the wrong end of it. And so then we go down to the Swamp and we win that game. And some other guys got some notice on defense, and I think they decided, hey, we can do this. And I don't know if there's any truth to that. It's all rumors. You hear these things. And, of course, the hotbed of it is right here. You're in town, and everybody knows everything. And so you kind of got to vet it and go, okay, that's a rumor, whatever, whatnot. So you just never know what's really true and what's not, like the Watkins injury. We hear about it, but I hope he's back. He's been so good. The touchdown over the top of everybody at LSU was kind of surprising, but, man, that was fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Josh Guest joins us. Thank you, man, for stopping by this week, and let's do it again next week. How about that?
That sounds good to me, man. I'm game.
All right, man.
All right, thanks.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.